Hey guys, in this episode of Battles, we're going to be covering the Battle of Cannae. The Battle of Cannae took place in southeastern Italy in 216 BC. It was the largest battle during the Second Punic War. The Second Punic War itself was fought between the Carthaginian Empire and the young Roman Republic. The battle was a result of Carthaginian leader Hannibal Barca's assault on the Roman Republic. Hannibal had led his army from Spain across the Alps and had ventured down into southern Italy. Before meeting them at Cannae, he had defeated the Romans at two major engagements at the Trebia River and Lake Trasimene. Since these two defeats, the Romans had been following a strategy by the emergency dictator Fabius Maximus to avoid direct conflict with Hannibal. However, the Romans elected two new consuls named Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus to lead the Republic once Maximus's 6-month term ended. They elected to give Hannibal battle and move toward Hannibal's army that was occupying the town of Cannae. The army that the Romans decided to field at Cannae was the largest Roman army to ever take to a field of battle. Also, Paulus and Varro would switch command of the army at the end of each day. Hannibal attempted to entice the Romans to give battle by disrupting their water supply and harassing their troops. Finally, Varro decided to give Hannibal battle and the Romans exited their camp. Hannibal obliged and drew up his battle lines. Hannibal set up his infantry line in a crescent formation. The center line of the infantry bulged outward towards the Romans while the flanks were parallel to the Romans. The center bulge was made up mostly of light infantry, including the Celts and Iberians, while the flanks were made up of heavy African infantry, who at this point were equipped with Roman arms and armor captured from their previous victories at Trasimene and Trebia. Hannibal also set up his cavalry on his flanks. The Romans arrayed themselves in their traditional form of battle. Their light infantry, known as velites, were deployed in the front, while the bulk of the Roman infantry was positioned behind and formed a deep formation. The Roman line was also flanked by its own cavalry. The Roman army, again the largest to ever take the field, numbered almost 80,000 infantry in addition to 6,000 cavalry. The army was divided roughly in half between the Romans and the Romans' allies. The battle opened when the light infantry from each side began skirmishing in the field, but it truly began when the Carthaginian cavalry attacked from Hannibal's left flank. The Carthaginian cavalry smashed the Roman cavalry and sent them retreating toward the river, where the Carthaginians slaughtered them. Subsequently, the main infantry formations joined the battle. The Romans pushed the bulge in Hannibal's line back, but the Carthaginian line didn't break and retreat. Eventually, the Romans were falling into Hannibal's trap. The Romans had pushed so far into the bulge of the line, the heavy African infantry on the Carthaginian flanks turned in and enveloped them. As this happened, Hannibal's light cavalry on the right flank attacked the Roman left flank. The fighting didn't favor either the Romans or the Carthaginians, but Hannibal's left flank's cavalry, coming back from slaughtering the Romans at the river, smashed into the back of the Roman cavalry and routed them. The Carthaginian light cavalry chased down the fleeing Roman cavalry, while the Carthaginian heavy cavalry, upon leaving the fleeing Romans, turned and smashed into the back of the Roman infantry formation, being enveloped by the Libyans and the other Carthaginian light infantry, turning the entire field into a massacre. At this point, the Roman general Paulus fell, shortly followed by two previous consuls named Attilius and Servilius that were present at the battle as well. Near the end, Varro managed to escape with a handful of surviving Roman and Roman allied cavalry. The final losses of the battle were enormous. Around 70,000 Romans were killed, while another 10,000 were captured. The battle remains one of the worst and bloodiest military defeats in world history. However, Hannibal was not able to use his undeniable triumph at Cannae to march on Rome. He was, however, able to remain in southern Italy for over another decade until called back to fight the Romans in Africa. Well, that wraps up the Battle of Cannae. If you liked the video, please leave it a like, comment, subscribe if you want to, leave some feedback. Thanks for watching. See you later.